It's Trish. So I actually just finished up my summer semester of classes. It's actually going to take me a while to do this video because there's a lot going on. So I'm going to explain the concept of the video to you now, and then I will start it sometime. So basically, I have had Goodreads since 2015, maybe even earlier, and I've been reading my entire life. And so I have a bunch of books added on there from when I've read them as like a very young kid to like present day. And I have a lot of 5-star reads that, to be honest, I don't know if I would rate them 5 stars today if I were to reread the book. And so what I thought I could do is go back through my Goodreads from whenever I started up until 2020, which is last year, and reread all of my 5-star ratings, and then I can re-rate them with a current rating. The first book that I rated 5 stars is The Twits by Roald Dahl. I'm excited about this. I literally read this book in 4th grade and I loved it so much back then. Roald Dahl wrote some great children's books. He's the one who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I read another book from him back in like 2017. You're never too old to read children's literature. I guess I'll be reading The Twits. Let's get into The Twits. Alright, so I just finished up The Twits by Roald Dahl. It only took me about an hour or two to listen to the whole thing. Pretty entertaining, to be honest. Basically, the story follows this old couple who are ghastly. They are evil. They are kind of gross looking and just like really bad people, but they live in this house and they pull these evil pranks on each other all the time. They don't actually love each other. It's just kind of, they're like really bad people. They're characterized in this very childish way. They have pictures and I love the pictures. I think it really adds to the story. It is a story for like grade school children and I really appreciated the way that it was written. I loved it. And another thing that I really liked about this book, the way that they use kind of like rhyming words and stuff like that, it has such a fun cadence. Was it dark for children? I don't know. I didn't turn out too bad. So I think it was pretty good. I don't know if I have any complaints. Would I give it 5 out of 5? Would I be like, I loved this. This is the best grade school book I've ever read? No. 4 out of 5 though. There's nothing like objectively wrong with it. I just didn't love it the way that I did when I was in 4th grade. That is the first book that I gave 5 out of 5 stars. And I now am revising it to 4 out of 5. Okay, I just posted my review to Goodreads and I think I just found out that Roald Dahl had bad opinions and was an anti-Semite. So not too happy about that. And it's even more interesting because he actually has a line in the book and it says, if a person has ugly thoughts, it begins to show on their face. And when that person has ugly thoughts every day, every week, every year, that face gets uglier and uglier until it gets so ugly you can hardly bear to look at it. So what does that say about him? So the next book that I gave 5 stars is what I always say is my favorite book because I read this in elementary school and I remember loving it. I honestly don't know if I would love it reading it today, but it is called Someone Named Eva by Jonah Wolf. I'm gonna go get it. Okay, so this book is about a girl. Her name is Milada. She lives in Czechoslovakia during World War II and she is Jewish. I believe she's Jewish. And actually, no, she's not Jewish. The Germans come and invade. Her life gets uprooted. She goes to this center, the Lebensborn Center in Poland, and she has a hard time holding on to her identity, and it's just kind of like about a young girl going through this tumultuous time period. She's also trying to hold on to her identity. It was really touching when I first read it. I read it a few times after that. I bought the book because this was a Sunshine State book when I was a kid. If you're a Florida kid, you know what I'm talking about. But I read this book so many times when I was a kid and I loved it, but I don't know if I would love it today. I don't know. I think it would still be touching and heartwarming, and it's still like good literature to like kind of introduce kids to what went on during World War II. I'm gonna try and read this. I'll tell you guys what I think. Okay, I ignore how messy my hair looks. I just finished this again, and I have to say, this was one of the most touching and heartwarming things that I've ever read. I was truly ahead of my time as an 11-year-old for this to be my favorite book, and I truly do still think this is one of my favorite books. I think this was just written so well. It does have a slow start, but the most impactful and important bits and pieces of it happen around the middle of the book, where Milada, or Eva, gets adopted into the family for the Germanization process. Obviously, after these 2-3 years of being forced to be German, she starts to feel love and compassion for them because they're treating her like family, and they are her supposed adopted family. And so she's at constant war with herself, where she's thinking, I feel so guilty for, you know, calling these people mother and father and interacting with these people, and they're literal Nazis, you know what I mean? And then she like finds out slowly about the concentration camps and like what's going on around her, and then the father who she's come to call father is working at these concentration camps. You know, she feels so guilty. She's always wondering about her family and she feels so lost and sad, but at the same time, she's grown to care so much about these people in her life. It's so difficult to read about, as World War II literature is difficult to read about, but more than that, I just think it's so well written, and it's written in a way that children can understand it, but I also think that it's written perfectly to describe how an 11-year-old would think about these topics. I tapped a few things just now while rereading it. Pulled me into her lap, whispering and rocking me gently. I let her hold me, feeling ashamed point. She was a Nazi. She was the enemy. She invaded my land and taken my home from me, and yet she was a woman. She was my new mother, there to comfort me and hold me. I couldn't help but feel safe and protected in her arms because she's like a little girl. She doesn't really know the progression of the war, only through like things that she hears on the radio or what she hears her parents talking about. And so she's like, there was a war. I could easily forget it while living in this place in the midst of such luxury and quiet. Were there really people still fighting against the Nazis? By now I was sure they must be in charge of the whole world, which also adds to her defeatism because she thinks that this is going to be her life forever. She's stuck with these people, and even though she's grown to care about them, she still can never trust them, and she still feels incredibly angry towards them all the time because they'll never understand her, and they also have ruined her life. I totally recommend it for people of all ages. I think this is a strong story that everyone should read. I also forgot to mention this, but I feel like in Someone Named Eva, the author did a really good job at characterizing people who are meant to be evil, giving them motives and making them out to seem like real people. I feel like in kids' books, they have the good or evil personality trait and there's never any nuance. I really feel like that helped with the internal struggle that she had of being like, why in the world do I feel connected to these people when they're technically bad, but they are so nice to me? Okay, the next book that I rated 5 stars is actually The Fault in Our Stars. I'm gonna go get it right now. Not only was this book the start of my obsession with medical stuff, but more than that, it propelled me into reading coming of age books. This took over my 2014. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was only 12 years old when I read this book, so I feel like feelings might change because I'm older and I literally haven't looked at this book. I've thought about it, I have, because I've seen like media, but I haven't really thought about it since 2014. And it also started my John Green obsession because I read at least half of his books by now. We're gonna read this again. I'm really excited. I'm going to read it and get back to you guys when I'm done. I'm a mess. I just finished The Fault in Our Stars and I knew I would cry, but I didn't know I would cry the equivalent that I cried when I was 12. I look so bad. I have a review right after I go use the bathroom and pull myself together. I can admit this is not my most attractive state. I'm sorry. I thought that 5 years later, reading this book would not hurt the way that it hurt when I was a kid, and that reading about these star-crossed lovers in this coming of age book, though they both will probably never come of age, would not hurt me as much because I was older and I could see through all the fuzzy glossy things and I could be more critical. But let's get real. I feel like this is going to be my longest review, but I'm going to try and keep this under 2 minutes. It was eloquent. It was twice as beautiful as I remember it, and I think that is going to be my Goodreads review. They have totally opposite traits. Hazel is a nihilist. She is depressed. She's unhappy with her life, and understandably so. Things are not going so well for her, and yet she meets Augustus, and he is very pretentious, which I think Hazel also has a bit of pretentiousness. I think a lot of these characters think very highly of themselves, but I think it adds to the story. But Augustus is particularly pretentious in the way that he speaks. He talks about his cigarette being a metaphor, and he says he fears oblivion and that all salvation is temporary and all these other things that I thought were very prolific when I was younger, and I think still that they are worth reading and analyzing because I do think they add to his character, and I do agree with some of these things. But I think I love his optimism. He says, I'm a roller coaster that only goes up, and he says it so many times throughout the book. As I said, the guy fucking kicked Cancer's ass. He's sunshine and she's quite grumpy, and I think that this is exactly what she needed, but I also think that he needs a little bit of realism to ground him, even though life has been realism and it's been ass kicking for this kid. I still think that they match so well together. All salvation is temporary thing. It kind of is a theme throughout this book. It's a thing that coming of age books do ask, but I think, like I said, Augustus has such a pretentious way of asking it, but like, will I leave a mark on this earth? Do I matter? Will I matter once I've died? And it's like even more stressful because these kids are like ticking time bombs. All of the ways that John Green writes is just so beautiful. I fell in love the way you fall asleep slowly and then all at once. These are things that I literally quoted and had on my wall when I was 12 years old. I mean, like, these things like are so impactful, so rereading them means like a lot to me. Lydia, the character Lydia, was an interesting personification of people who like don't know what to say to people who are suffering from cancer. They say things like, you're so strong, you're so brave. I thought that was a very interesting way of personifying that without saying it totally outright. The thing with Isaac, he was talking about always, and he was promising his girlfriend, and then of course Isaac goes blind and his girlfriend goes MIA. And I think Hazel's way of looking at it, like, it's not a very nice thing she did to her, and he goes, well, I didn't do it on purpose, and she's like, yeah, I know, but it's still not very nice, and that she doesn't have to be there for him because it's not her responsibility, but she should want to because she said that she would love him. And he said always is like a promise, and when you love someone, you keep that promise no matter what happens. And I think that that's a very interesting way that he looks at love, and that's how most teenagers kind of look at love. It shows such an accurate depiction of like sick people and like sick kids. It starts devolving, and as it devolves, it's like it's not this pretty thing. The way that we write about people who we've loved and cared about, we say they fought strong, they were optimistic through the end, but that's not always true. People have made a lot of fun about this, and I just reread it and it kind of like sicken me, but I will disregard the making out in the Anne Frank house because I feel like it shows, because even though I think it's absolutely disgusting to make out in Anne Frank's house and the adults clapping, that's really weird, I think it shows like how teenagers feel when they're in love and like what they do when they're in love. They feel like they're in this world alone. They're standing in this world alone and like everything feels so intimate, but it's really freaking gross. And slowly Hazel starts to become a little bit more optimistic, and then shit hits the fan, and then things get worse, and then we finally see some character development on Gus's part as well, with him realizing that even if he doesn't leave a mark on the entire world, he has people who cares about him and he cares about, and it's important that, you know, he's left a mark on them. I also talk about like grief. There's this Taylor Swift song called Marjorie, and it kind of talks about her grandmother who's passed away, and just like it talks about her dead grandmother, and that's kind of what the song's about, but it kind of reminds me of my own grandmother, and it's like this feeling of like grieving someone who's not yet dead. And I think that this book talks about that really well, and like how difficult that is, because it's like, I wrote it down, I said, I think the knowing they're about to die is so much harder than they've died already. It's a mixture of hope, desperation, and grief, because you don't want them to die. You know they're about to die, you hoping that they don't die, and then they die anyways. Last thing about The Fault in Our Stars, I think listening to the soundtrack at certain times really actually helped the emotional de-evolution. Please go listen to it, it's so good. Okay, did not even think half as critically when I was 12 about this book, but I still thought it was beautiful, and I still think it's beautiful now. It still gets 5 out of 5 stars. The next book is Looking for Alaska by John Green. Now I'm gonna go read Looking for Alaska. I don't even particularly remember loving this book to give it 5 stars, so I don't really know why I gave this book 5 stars. I don't think I loved this book. I don't think about these characters. Guys, I'm in my apartment. It's a new setting. I'm trying to read Looking for Alaska for the past like 4 days, and I was like stuck at page like 30. I don't know, I cannot read this book for some reason. I was trying to interpret it so much. It was like making it insufferable. But the most important things include the last words. Miles Pudge enjoys learning about last words, and so the last words that are really important to him that introduce the story is the great perhaps, and he wants to find his great perhaps, which I made sure to look that up, and it's just kind of like a really great like what if, basically. So he goes to Alabama looking for his great what if, and he kind of finds it with Alaska almost. Of course, at this school, that's where he's supposed to find it, and this girl, he's like totally infatuated with her, but he doesn't have any like true substance with her. He doesn't actually like her for who she is. He just kind of is like, pretty girl is pretty. I like that, because she is so clearly depressed. When I was reading this book at like 13, I was like so sad. I literally probably could have related to her, and the fact that I couldn't like place these emotions is so weird. But by the way, her important famous last words were, I'm stuck in this labyrinth, I can't get out of this labyrinth. And so the question is this labyrinth about life or death? And so to me, I believe this labyrinth, I think the labyrinth is life. Like living life is like a maze. You can't get out of it until you're totally out, and you don't know what's going on. Spoilers, by the way, but Alaska leaves a suicide note, and it says quick and fast, or like straight and fast, or something like that, which is indicating that she probably did kill herself because she drove straight into a police car, quick and fast, right? I don't connect with this book as much as I did before, but I also think like my reading can sometimes be totally tied to like the emotion that I'm feeling right now. I think it is a good book. I think it's a good piece of literature. I think John Green always has a way of making me connect with characters who I just don't connect with. Some of them I don't even like. 4 stars. Hey guys, okay, so the next book that is on my 5-star list is A Work in Progress by Connor Franta. I remember vividly, this was the first book that I ever decided to listen to. So I was a huge Connor Franta fan, O2L fan when I was younger. I have to confess, the title of this book is very thoughtful. Like a work in progress, because he literally is a work in progress, because he's literally a human being. I read this in 2015. So I'm thinking what I'm seeing is a lot of people are saying that he was too naive to write this. I'm going to read this again. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I'm going to try to get through this in a day. I feel like it's possible. Okay, I'm realizing I didn't give you an update about A Work in Progress. Personally, I reread it. I just didn't like the writing style. I thought the narration was like, who's talking to me, and I don't know. I don't really like that in book. If you're a book, I'm not saying you have to take yourself seriously in a book, but if you're going in and you're labeling it a memoir and all this other stuff, and it's making it seem like you really want to take yourself seriously, writing like that doesn't take yourself seriously. Like the insight that we gained about his life, I feel like I already knew a lot of it, and I don't know if it's because I read the book or just because I was like an avid fan of him. I felt like he wrote the book for his fans, which is fine, but it's also also like if you're selling it to the general public, then I think that book should be able to appeal to the general public as well. I mean, it's by no means like a terrible book. I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. It just isn't something that I personally enjoyed. I remember I did listen to it when I was younger, and I read it this time. Like, I read the book online, so I'm not sure if it's because I read it online. So, like, if the physical book's formatting is that way, I think the formatting is really ugly, and like I just don't understand the inspiration behind it. I think that it's more of a picture book than an actual book. I think like it feels more like a picture book with like captions or like stories to go along with it. And then also the photos that he took specifically were not all that good. It felt like I was going through 2014 Tumblr. I don't know, did he take photography classes? I think his videos were always nice quality, and like I looked at his recent videos afterwards. I realized he wrote another book, and then he's going to be releasing a book soon, so I thought that like his videography is like spectacular, though I don't know if he films all his videos currently, whatever. But I thought I would like it more because I loved it so much, but then I was clouded by being like a 12-year-old and like a huge fan of him. That is how I felt about that book. And then the next book that I'm going to be reading is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I remember I read this book through 6th grade, and then I had to read it again for my 7th grade reading class, so I like did a deep analysis of this book, and I really liked it back then. Though I think with like my new scope or like view of the world, I still am going to like it. Like, it kind of talks a lot about overbearing governments, these talking points that I like didn't think about when I was younger. Obviously, as a 12-year-old, I don't think about like totalitarian governments, but I loved dystopia because I thought that it was very interesting. But like looking at it from this like deeper perspective, I think I would hope that I have today. I think I will find more substance in this book. Okay guys, you're going to hate me, and I give you full right to hate me because oh my goodness. So this video has been put on pause since September, a very long time ago, because basically when I got to The Hunger Games, it was free on Kindle Unlimited, and I read the first 2 pages and I was like, oh my god, I don't want to read this book again. I genuinely just don't want to read The Hunger Games again, guys. I'm sorry. I'm reading this dystopian book right now called Red Rising. This is it, Red Rising, and it has reminded me of how dystopian books are. They're very slow until they get to the action part, and I just can't read a slow book right now because I have so many book demands. I have so many books to read. I cannot read The Hunger Games again. I'm gonna read a synopsis of the books. I could watch the movies, but no. I'm gonna reread the synopsis of both of them, and then I'm going to give you a thorough review of how I feel about the synopsis. I'm just not in the mood to read it again, and I'm not gonna force myself, because clearly, when I tried to force myself, I spent an entire semester avoiding this video, so let's go. I think it's really well set up. I love dystopian books because I think like they create really high stakes, they give us high risks and sometimes high rewards, and overall I think it's done so well. I love how reflective it is of like society in a sense, and I just love it. Like, it's original, it's creative, it's interesting. Like, there's actually just nothing to not love about the Hunger Games series. I don't really like Catching Fire because I think it's like probably my least favorite Hunger Games book, because even though it like expands on the characters, like in a way it's repetitive, right? They go back to do the Hunger Games again. But yeah, it's just like the book is good. Both of the books are interesting and they're good, but I'm simply not going to read them because I don't want to, and it is taking everything out of me to read them, and I just don't. I want to continue and finish this video before the new year, and I feel like it's totally possible because I have officially done my last final like 2 hours ago, and now I have time on my hands. Okay, wait, I think I have a physical copy of the next book. It was on my little brother's bookshelf, but I do have this book. This book is The Witches by Roald Dahl. It's pretty similar to The Twits, I feel like. They're both by Roald Dahl. Kind of crazy, kind of quizzical, fun, lighthearted, whimsical child book. It's my little brother's birthday party today, so I don't know if I'll be able to finish it today, but it literally has 200 pages. The font is super huge. We're gonna do it right now. Basically, this book is about grandmama who loves to tell stories about witches who are the most dangerous things ever. These witches hate children. Nothing can prepare him for when he meets the Grand High Witch himself. It is many hours later. I'm putting on hand lotion right now. I'm here to talk about the witches. So I think it's really funny that his parents died in a car crash. Okay, when I say it like that, that sounds evil. I just mean like there's this on-running joke where like in Wattpad books, the main character, her parents will always have died in a car crash, and that's like her tragic backstory. And that is his backstory. His parents died in a car crash. I feel like that's not really a spoiler. It's like in the beginning. But yeah, I thought this was like mystifying in like a fun way. It's like kind of eerie and terrifying and like a little bit frightening, but it keeps like this like whimsical, lighthearted feel where it's kind of just dancing along. He has like these rhyming schemes that he always does in his books that make it fun to read along with. I don't have strong love for it or anything, and I think it's just because I read this probably when I was like 14, maybe 15. Like I didn't read this at an extremely young age, so I wasn't super connected with it. What would I give it now? I don't know. Like it wasn't blow my socks off 5 stars. Like it wasn't my favorite book ever. It was just okay. Like I thought it was cute. I thought a child would enjoy it. I loved kind of the balancing, like the teetering between a little bit frightening and still pretty fun. So I probably give this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't think I will ever read this book ever again. So now that I've finished that book, the next book that I have to read is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I'm going to go pick it up and then we're going to read it together. It's this bad boy. I even have tabs in her. So I read this book literally in one night. I sat down, I read the whole thing, I loved it, and then a few years later, lo and behold, it became a movie. This book follows our main character, I forget her name, but she's a Jamaican immigrant and she's undocumented and she is getting deported. Meets this guy, I think, yes, he's South Korean, and they kind of like have one day together to like have this fun journey, and it doesn't even really feel like one day. They do so much and you learn so much, and it's just like I love how I love how she writes. I do. What does the title mean? I don't really remember, or no. I guess we're going to find out. But yeah, I'm excited to read this. Let's go. I'm reading this book right now and I remembered why I literally read this in like one sitting. This is the cutest thing ever. This book is so cute. I'm looking at like all my tabs from when I first read it, and it makes sense. I relate to it too. Like so much of this is relatable. Natasha is me and I am Natasha in some ways, too many ways, which means that I'm very similar to our author. Now I'm talking too much and this video is already way too long, so yeah. I read this book in one sitting again. Oh my goodness, I freaking love this book. This book is amazing. This is 5 out of 5 stars again. It's so good. I really enjoyed just how fun and lively these characters are. I love how realistic they are. I love the way she blends different cultures and different people. I love the complexities of like the family dynamics and stuff like that. And I just think that it was so well done. Like I just love this book so much. Sometimes I feel like the ending is a little bit unsatisfying, but I mean, is it realistic? Yes it is. I also love like how the side characters get their own chapters, they get their own history, and it's like you can see things from their perspective. Like actually, like the next book that I'm reading, oh, this one's easy, thank goodness. I'm sorry I'm whispering, but everybody in my house is asleep. It's like midnight. The next book is Lullabies by Lang Leave. This is a poetry collection. I really liked this poetry collection when I read it. Obviously I gave it 5 stars. I don't particularly remember why. I'm not big on poetry. I just think this book is really pretty. I really wanted to be like interested in poetry and like a cool girl who likes poetry, but honestly I can say I'm not really a cool girl who likes poetry, so we will see what I loved so much about this. I'll probably get to this tomorrow because I'm kind of sleepy, and I will get back to you guys probably tomorrow or soon, give you a quick review on this book. Here to say that I've started rereading this. Sorry, this is an ugly angle, but you can tell this was written in like that 2014 to like 2016 Tumblr era of poetry. The way it's written, like these poems are all super short. It leaves pages blank. I think that wastes a lot of paper. I'm only on the 3rd poem right now, but it's pretty basic rhyme schemes, pretty basic concepts so far. I mean, there's nothing like love though, I suppose, but this is a little surface level in my opinion. Perhaps I never loved enough. If only I'd loved more, I would not nearly had so much left waiting for you in store. The grammar in that makes no sense to me. I would not nearly had so much left waiting for you in store. It goes from future tense to past tense. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what you mean there, babe.
Like what? I hate poetry. It's always so confusing. What does that mean? Hey guys, I'm back. It's a couple days later. I finished Lullabies by Lang Leave. I kind of skimmed through a lot of these poems. It was just not good. I am not particularly the best person to review poetry, I will admit. I'm pretty bad at poetry. I'm not bad at analyzing it or anything, but obviously that takes a lot of time. I will read a poem and I will sit down and think about it for like 5 seconds, and I'll be like, I think this is what the author was trying to say, and then I'll keep going. But it was really hard to find the good in this poetry collection. So the book is beautiful, and I think that's why I was so drawn to it. But when I look past that, again, like I said earlier, I think the way that it's just like stylized, it was trying to cater to the audience, young Tumblr users of the time. I thought that the art was pretty. So Lang Leave did draw this art in here. I thought it was interesting the way that it was set up. So there's duet, interlude, finale, and encore. And it's kind of obviously written as like a play or as a concert. It tells a story. It's more like a love story, somebody getting into a relationship and then they kind of go through a tough time. They eventually break up. I just think like the poetry lacks depth most of the time. It has these weak surface level analogies. There was an analogy about a fisherman, and it's like one guy wants to just catch as many fish as he can to experience them all, and then one guy is only looking for one fish. So it's really hard for him to find it. And it's like obviously fish in the sea, like a man is looking for a woman. Like that's what that is, you know what I mean? It's just not, I don't know, there's not a lot of depth, and for a lot of it she uses these analogies, other times she doesn't. There's not an overarching theme in this poetry collection, and because she chose to put all of these books together in this collection, you would expect there to be a theme and there just isn't, and I find that a little bit strange. I feel like you're kind of close to me. So yeah, I didn't really like that there wasn't an actual theme going on. It felt kind of like in some ways she wanted to do this like fun, whimsical, like fairy tale almost, kind of like writing these analogies and they would parallel her life, but at the same time it would just seem like some of them were drawn directly from her life, and so I don't know if that was purposeful or maybe she just didn't have a total direction. But yeah, I just thought like that was not good. Tonally it felt kind of like juvenile. I don't know, the poems didn't feel very striking. I can't find a word. I've been thinking about a word to use for it. It's not hard hitting. It doesn't leave you lingering. It's just kind of like, it's there. Poem, and I don't really know if that is what poetry is supposed to be. So I gave this 2 stars. The next book on my list, I actually think I will enjoy this. The next book is When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore. Okay, so this is a magical realism book. I think this book was just written like so beautifully. Half the time I felt like I was like stepping into a new world when I read this. It was so pretty. There's trans representation in this book, I'm pretty sure. But basically there's Miel and then there's Sam, and Miel has like roses growing out of her wrists. These 4 sisters, and these sisters are convinced that the roses that grow out of Miel's hands or wrists will get anybody to fall in love with them, and so they're trying to get these roses from her at any cost. Sam is trying to protect her. That's the main conflict in this book. It's just like so pretty. Like this book is just so pretty. Hopefully after rereading this it'll convince me to read Wild Beauty, because I've been wanting to read Wild Beauty from her for a very long time. But yeah, after this disappointment I'm really looking for something fun and just pretty and lush and happy. Back a few days later, I finished When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore. This is a magical realism book. With magical realism books, I feel like there is definitely like a plot, but so much of it is just feeling. It's in like an ambiance thing, and she does it so perfectly. You really feel captivated. You're in this book. You're just on this adventure. It's just so lush, so beautiful, and so suspenseful at times. I've never actually like read an author's note that I thought was like so important, but like I think her author's note is really important. I think this is such a beautiful book, and I would recommend it to literally everyone. Still a 5 out of 5 for me. It's so beautiful. The way that people feel about The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, I'm pretty sure that's how I feel about this. That's exactly how I feel about this. I love this book. The rest of the list is all Victoria Schwab books, and to be honest, I just know they're all going to come out as 5 stars. Like I just know it because I love all her books. I love everything that she writes. I want this video to come to you guys before 2022. This is a really long-winded, long drawn out video, and I'm sure like this is probably a super long video, and I don't want you guys to sit through me reading like 6 more books. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the video with this book right here. We got through a lot of books in this video. We talked a lot, did a lot, we felt a lot of feelings. I'm so happy we're done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you guys find some new cool reads. A lot of these books I feel like aren't super popular. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will talk to you guys next time. Bye guys.